Hello, everyone, welcome back to the Impact Report. Please subscribe and like my videos. Today we are diving deep into the political struggle of Alexander Lukashenko and examining the immense pressure Belarus faces from Moscow. The Eastern European nation, sandwiched between Russia and the European Union, has long been a strategic ally of Moscow, but recent developments suggest a complex, fragile relationship that could shape the region's future. Lukashenko's leadership has been tested repeatedly over decades, with both domestic unrest and external pressures threatening his hold on power. Belarus's economic and military reliance on Russia is undeniable, yet cracks are appearing in this long-standing alliance. Citizens across the country have voiced dissatisfaction, from protests in Minsk to labor strikes, signaling an internal struggle that intersects with the geopolitical tension imposed by Moscow. Belarus's landscape is both political and literal. Cities like Minsk, the capital, are bustling centers of government activity, but also hotspots for protests. Infrastructure across the country, from factories to administrative buildings, reflects decades of Soviet-era planning, with some modernization, yet often reliant on Russian imports for energy, military equipment, and technology. The urban environment shows a nation in transition, with growing ambitions clashing against an old dependency structure. Roads and bridges that link major cities to Russia are strategic arteries, facilitating both trade and military movement. Railways also play a key role in maintaining Russia's influence and logistical presence in Belarus. The geography of Belarus, forests, rivers, and its flatlands, has historically made it both defensible and vulnerable, giving military planners in Moscow significant leverage over strategic decisions. Inside the corridors of power, the interior of Belarus's government offices and military command centers reflects a balance between tradition and modern political maneuvering. Lukashenko's office is equipped with technology that allows constant communication with Moscow, yet also serves as a command hub to monitor domestic opposition. Military headquarters house sophisticated equipment largely provided by Russia, including armored vehicles, missile systems, and electronic surveillance tools. The decision-making process is centralized around Lukashenko, but increasingly influenced by Russian advisors and diplomats. The domestic political scene is equally complex. Opposition parties and independent media are under heavy scrutiny, with public discontent manifesting in protests that occasionally escalate into clashes with security forces. Social, economic, and political pressures all converge within the interior of Belarus's power structures, making it a high-stakes environment where decisions can have far-reaching consequences for both the leader and the nation. Belarus's performance on the international stage is a mix of resilience and dependency. Economically, Belarus struggles with sanctions imposed by Western powers due to human rights violations and electoral controversies, yet it continues to rely on Russia for energy supplies, trade partnerships, and military aid. The Belarusian economy is fragile, with inflation and currency instability creating challenges for everyday citizens. In terms of governance, Lukashenko has maintained a strong authoritarian grip, but domestic dissent has increased, showing cracks in his performance as a leader able to unify the country under a singular vision. On the military front, Belarus is capable of defending its borders with Russian support, but it is heavily reliant on Moscow for equipment, training, and strategic guidance. International performance, in terms of diplomacy, is cautious. Belarus balances between appeasing Russia and avoiding further sanctions from Europe. This tightrope act demonstrates a country performing under constant pressure, with its sovereignty often questioned by both allies and adversaries. Safety features in Belarus are an amalgamation of internal security measures and military preparedness. The government employs extensive surveillance of public communications, social media, and street activities to prevent uprisings or destabilization attempts. Military bases and checkpoints are maintained to ensure control over key regions. Russia's influence also extends to providing strategic advisory and support for internal security, making Belarus a highly monitored environment. Civil safety, however, is a challenge due to protests and economic hardship. Emergency response systems exist but are stretched thin during periods of unrest. Safety in Belarus is therefore a combination of heavy government oversight, strategic military deployment, and external support from Russia, highlighting the fragile balance between order and instability. The unique selling points of Belarus as a nation lie in its strategic geography, industrial capacity, and its role as a buffer state between Russia and the EU. Politically, Belarus presents an example of authoritarian resilience under extreme pressure. Economically, it offers resource opportunities, particularly in energy and manufacturing sectors that remain integrated with Russian supply chains. Militarily, it holds significant strategic value for Russia, acting as a staging ground for operations and influence in Eastern Europe. Belarus also possesses rich cultural heritage and natural landscapes, from historical cities to dense forests, which have been relatively untouched by global commercialization, offering a sense of national identity that the government can leverage for internal cohesion. These unique characteristics make Belarus a critical player in regional geopolitics, despite its current struggles under Russian pressure. When considering the price Belarus pays for its current alignment, it is not measured in currency alone. The nation faces economic sanctions, international criticism, and a constant threat to its sovereignty. Citizens experience social and political restrictions, limited freedom of expression, and economic challenges due to reliance on Russian support and Western sanctions. Politically, Lukashenko pays the price of balancing domestic unrest with external expectations from Moscow. The nation's international standing suffers, making it difficult to establish independent trade and diplomatic relations. Military dependence on Russia ensures protection, but at the cost of political autonomy. In essence, the price of survival for Belarus is high, a mix of political compromise, economic dependency, and social restriction. In conclusion, Lukashenko's struggle exemplifies the delicate balance Belarus maintains under Russian pressure. The country faces both internal dissent and external influence, creating a scenario where decisions made today could redefine its sovereignty for decades to come. Citizens, leaders, and international observers all watch closely as Belarus navigates a challenging geopolitical landscape. The interplay between domestic unrest, economic fragility, and strategic dependence on Russia will define the nation's trajectory. Whether Belarus can survive this period of pressure remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the choices made by Lukashenko and his allies will resonate far beyond the borders of Minsk, impacting the broader dynamics of Eastern Europe for years to come.